Yo! It's that time of the month. Yes, it is the Mere Mortals Book Reviews Recap. I'm Kyrin, host of the Mere Mortals podcast, but also of the Mere Mortals Book Reviews, hence why you're here. And we're investigating, going over all of the books that were read in August of 2022, going over some Boostagrams at the end, some thank you to the people who have supported the show, and then also having a little look at the highlight of what's coming up for the next month. What's that? September. Yeah. So very quickly, I'm just going to be going over the top rated books, and then there's some additional thoughts that I had to them. So my favorite by far of the month was The Plague by Albert Camus. I really enjoyed this, and I think most of it was because of its comparison to me in my experience of reading 1984 by George Orwell, which is my favorite book of all time. No, hands down, there's nothing that can compare to it. And I find there's great depth to an explaining of objective circumstances followed by a personal monologue. So I kind of feel that the structure of the two books is very similar in the sense that you've got this kind of one narrator, you're following this one person's life for the most part, whether this be Winston Smith or whether this be Dr. Ryu. And you kind of see them going on, and then there's this kind of juncture point where they'll have a monologue written by another character. So in this case, it was Goldstein's book, and in the other case, this was by Theroux, of his thoughts and kind of his life. And I don't know what it is, but there's just something so deep within those. And it always, when I hit that monologue section where I just go, fuck, this book is really good. There's something really contained within here. And I struggled to explain why, but they just really convey deep meaning for me. So this is roughly page 200 to 210. And it's kind of like Theroux's fight against a persistent indifference. So it doesn't matter if you're a guilty owl or undeserved casualty. He was fighting against the death penalty, against murder. It's a similarity to the plague taking the innocent child, Jacques, which was a very emotional scene in that book. Or the forefront fighting priest Panelou. There was just so many different things. The only differences kind of between the two books, I'd say, is that, and why I only gave The Plague an 8 out of 10 and I'd give 1984 a 9 or a 9.5, is it seems like there's just more viral ideas, memes that came out of 1984. So these are things like Big Brother, Newspeak, like Ingsoc, Eurasia, Room 101. There was just so many more kind of memeable type things to come out of that book. Whereas this one, I'll remember Theroux and the cat spitter. Like those were two fantastic characters, but I just don't feel they had that holding power like 1984 does. But fantastic book. If you like 1984, I think you'll like The Plague. Another book which is coming out on the last day of the month, I believe, is the Either Or by Kierkegaard. And this is an awful book. I hated it. I gave it a 2 out of 10. There's nothing that I really... If you check out that review, you'll understand why. A couple of outcomes just to say is if you want to understand more of kind of why I've been disappointed by philosophy and philosophical books over this last year, because I've really made an effort to read them, you'll get some of that from there. And I believe it was episode 326 of the Mere Mortals podcast where I go over philosophy books with Juan, and we talk about why I've been struggling so much. And it could have been good, just nothing captured me. I thought there were some really cool questions like boredom, is it the root of all evil? And should we capture the Shah and sell him to the Turks for cash? It was kind of like the starting point of one of these mini letters, and yet just the persistent randomness. And I gave a couple examples of just writing, which I just didn't. It didn't capture me. I didn't understand it. Talking about object, desire, multiplicity. It's like, what the fuck does any of this mean? So if you have better luck with Kierkegaard and reading that, kudos to you. So those were the two books that I read and reviewed this month. And the reason I only did two was because this bad boy was taking up a lot of my time, and I was not enjoying it. So it made me not want to read. A little fun one I read, but I'm not going to do a book review on it because it's so small, was Murakami, the t-shirts that I love. So there's Haruki Murakami, the Japanese author. And basically it's kind of like a picture book type thing. So he's putting up, photos of these shirts that he's collected over the years and giving just some extra details about the shirt, but also about random thoughts from life. So he's got them split up into separate sections. So there's ones related to companies, there's running related ones, there's, what else has he got in here? Stuff from Hawaii, there's animal ones, there's all sorts of stuff. So it was just a fun little read into what I would say is quite a fascinating person in general, Murakami. And yeah, if you want to know more about him, that's a cool little book to get into. The last one that was on the actual Mere Mortals book reviews was Wands, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And this is a book that, and he gave this an 8 out of 10, so he quite enjoyed it. This is kind of the book that I might have read, 5-10 years ago, but one highlighted it. There's a difference between reading directly the actual people who created the work. So this would be things like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, or anything by Epictetus or Xenophon, or Seneca the Younger, things like that. And then the kind of modern interpretation of it. Now, this is where philosophy might just be too old. Maybe if there was a modern interpretation of either or by Kierkegaard, I'd maybe appreciate it. But my general thoughts were, okay, if the work was so important, I want to be able to read it and understand it directly. I don't want someone else telling me this is what they were saying. I'd rather just read what they're saying. Juan's got the opposite sort of point of view, which is he would never go read he has shown absolutely zero indication of wanting to go and read the direct ones, which, that's fine enough. He can do whatever he wants. But for me, I just go, well, I don't see what the point is of reading other people's works of old stuff and just the kind of modern bias that can get chucked into that. Maybe that would be good, and maybe that would help me understand some of these things. But I actually quite enjoy the Greek works, and I got a lot of value from reading them. And in terms of philosophy, those are probably the only books that I've actually read and really enjoyed and understood, and been able to see what they were trying to say and how it can have some practical applicability to my own life. So, being a fence sitter was one of the things as well that he was saying that Ryan Holiday was not really on board with. It was kind of like Kierkegaard, either or, you have to choose one. But I'm definitely the fence sitter life here, baby. So those were the books for August of 2022. Now, I actually have quite a few Boostagrams to read here because I did something a little bit different. Juan and I paid for a promotions on the Fountain app just to try it out. I'd done it on the Value for Value podcast before, but I wanted also to do it here and just see what it felt like, what the kind of outcome would be. And I've also chatted with Nick Mulster from the Fountain podcast. So if you listen to episode 329 of the Mere Mortals podcast, you'll learn a bit more about that, which is coming out in a week's time, roughly, or 5 days after this is released. So I'm just going to go run through these kind of rapid fire for some of them because there are quite a lot here. So we have 3 sats from Jaff 2100, and just assume all of these are from Fountain. He says, thanks, nice episode, keeping up. And all of these are for the Bitcoin Standard review, unless I say otherwise. We have 29 sats and Tranilla. Nice book review. I think I need to read the Bitcoin Standard anyway, though. Yeah. Hey, like the point of book reviews, I feel, is to kind of whet your appetite to be able to go into it. Or, if you're on the fence about it and don't want to read it, you can kind of get the modern interpretation from Kyrin. Lol, I'm doing exactly what I'm railing against. Good. 10 sats from Elio Bay, and he says, I liked it a lot with images, practically a video. I like it. Hey, that is a fantastic comment, my friend. Thank you for that, because I do actually put a lot of effort into the images, and yeah, that's great. I'm glad you enjoyed that. A big one here from Mr. Peter the Slav, and this is from Meditations on First Philosophy, and he says, I'm going to be honest here. I really have no idea what Rene was talking about either. He lost me at about the third meditation. Okay, bang on. Same with here. Glad you sort of enjoyed it though. Yeah, that was a fun book that I was one of the only philosophy books where I understood what he was getting at. I liked the process of his thought model. I thought that was really cool. What his final outcomes were, I kind of disagreed with and I didn't get the same things that he did, but that was a philosophy book where I went, okay, this is what I was expecting. This is a mode of thinking which I had never particularly tried before, and I was able to do it for myself. So kind of maybe dumb philosophy is what I need. 475 sats by Charlie67J, and it says, good book review. Thank you, my friend. 38 sats from user blah, 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 blah. Thanks for the info. No wackers, mate. 29 sats from Bitcoin Base. Great review. Cheers, mate. 29 sats from Ziggy Pat. Thanks. It is still on my reading list. Yeah, my reading list is pretty big as well, man. Don't feel too bad if you don't get to it soon. But in terms of a good reading list, it's decent. And the reason I laughed at was 34 sats from Joel W. Pew pew. Nice, thanks, mate. 95 sats from Sal. And he said, this was actually for the meditations. Sorry, jeez. Pew pew was actually on Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and this next one was Meditations on First Philosophy, and says, I had a class on this in college. It was nice to get a refresher. I found it hard to grasp then and even hard to grasp now, but philosophical concepts like idealism bring you to this book and it builds on it nicely. It's a good point, man. I think that whilst, there's definitely times in our life when you should read books and when you shouldn't read books, and some will speak to you at some points and others won't, and that's totally cool. The good thing I think I liked about this was I feel it's pretty accessible at, most ages. Now, maybe let's just say like 20s and upwards. You're probably not going to get much out of it if you're under 20, but are you really going to get much out of any books when you're under 20? Your brain's still forming and you're struggling to understand concepts and ideas. But nevertheless, I think that you can build on nicely from the concepts that he created in that book. And like you said, Meditations on First Philosophy, getting to those kind of first principles, the base layer, kind of looking deeper what's underneath. I think that's really, really useful. BTC DIR gives me a little love heart for 20 sats. Thank you, my friend. Joel W again. Stupid streaming doesn't seem to work for me, so here's a pew pew just in case. Oh, thank you, my friend. And that was actually for the Gulag Archipelago. So he's gone kind of deep into the realms, because I did that book review ages ago. That's like 2 years ago. 10 sats from Sovereign Canadian. Thanks. Glad to find this episode. No wuckers, my friend. 3 sats from user and then just a thinking face. Here's another big one. 95 sats from Puddington Beer. Nice name, man. I only listened to this because it was promoted, but I was pleasantly surprised at how considered and fair the review was. I note that it's a book review and not a topic or opinion review, so the reviewer is honest about his own lack of knowledge of alternative perspectives, but gives the book, which I have listened to, a solid critique with which I think I agree entirely. Oh, thanks, man. That's, I do try and split it up. So as I do these reviews, I do basically set it in the format where, synopsis, this is basically what the book is, and I really try and avoid things like, I thought this, this is what I expected. So really trying to take the I part out of it and just saying, this is a tome about this. The writer writes it like in this style. This is how this happens. The themes, that's where I try and have a mix kind of between me and the actual work itself. So this is typically where I'll read out a passage, or I'll talk about how this character did this thing is kind of reflective of this greater theme of X or whatever. And then in the observations, takeaways, that's where I really just add in my own thoughts, feelings, things that came up for me. And then in the summary, that's pretty much just all subjective. I like this book or I didn't like this book. Here's a rating of it. So yeah, that's how I run them, man. And I'm kind of glad that well, at least got a he mentioned it there. There was a honest, kind of review, considered and fair, but then also me, highlighting my own lack of knowledge that was particularly related to economics and the other economic systems like Keynesian and things like that, because I haven't spent time diving into them. 24 sats from Bo Dislate, and it says, awesome, thank you, my friend. 10 sats from Crypto Beard, great overview of the book, no wakas. 3 sats from Coca, gracias dinero. Cheers, my friend. 88 sats from Tjoln, 39. Double promo given back, no wakas. 10 sats from Rails_11, great book. 238 sats, user, very good review of a perfect book about Bitcoin. For total beginners, I recommend reading the Little Bitcoin Book and Bitcoin Money Book, illustrated, great also for kids, before reading the Bitcoin Standard. Okay, that's interesting. I hadn't actually heard of those other ones. I'd always just been recommended this as kind of the first go-to book to understand Bitcoin. I can see that though, because I had, let's just say 2 years of kind of deep looking, 1 year of very deep looking at the fundamentals of Bitcoin, listening to a bunch of Bitcoin podcasts and other, I'm going to use the word, crypto podcasts to really understand what sets proof of work apart, how does a wallet work, and then also using the system myself. So I found it a really good book for my level of understanding. So but yes, coming into it completely fresh, yeah, maybe you'd struggle with the last part about Bitcoin, but it's mostly a book about money anyway. 5 sats from Renault, thanks, exclamation. 3 sats from Jaff 2100, thanks, man, keep up, from Saudi Arabia. Hey, no wakas, man. Very cool to know that someone from there is listening. Joel W, this book sounds amazing. That's related to Snow Crash, and that was 34 sats. Peter again, coming in with the big boost. Thank you very much, Peter. Do appreciate that. It says there's something pretty incredible about clean floors, and so that was related to the plague. Man, I keep forgetting what what I was talking about. I assume that's an offhand comment that I was using in an analogy, because there's nothing in the book about cleaning floors per se. You pick out the funniest stuff, man. I now I need to go back and listen to what I was saying. 4 sats from user safe! Exclamation mark. 4 sats from the same user. Yes. 48 sats from Lightning Dev. Brilliant book. Add to this his second book, The Fiat Standard, which I hope to read at some point, but I'm not in a big hurry for that. A debt slavery alternative to human civilization, and you will be well on your way down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. I'm pretty far down, man, to be honest. That book itself kind of convinced me that Bitcoin's the only money. Cryptocurrencies, that I find as a misnomer. I just think that's a useless word anymore. They're all trying to do other things than be a currency, and if you want to be a money, all you want is a money. You don't want additional applicability to do X or Y, or have it tied up to these other incentives and things like that. No, you just want it as a money. So I'm pretty far down that kind of rabbit hole. 10 sats from Hernan, great podcast, thanks mate. 10 sats from Anu Cool, nice review of the Bitcoin Standard book, good job, done. Yeah. 3 sats from user 4 more sats, okay, no wakas. 48 sats from Garchos Audio, excellent, and then 2 of those. Peter coming in again, and finally for 4,750 sats, and he says, this is the obstacle is the way. That's a very helpful way to look at life. You can't control other people. All you can control is the way you react in any given situation. Stock philosophy is awesome, man. I really, if I had to put my, philosophical hat on and what sort of percentages, it's got to be high up. It's probably got to be, more than 50%, I think. Add some Buddhism in there, maybe some objectivism, maybe a touch of like a dash of postmodernism. But yeah, Stoicism is, I find it a very, very useful, practical way of living in the world. I think the Greeks were really onto something. So yeah, dang, that's a big Boostagram section. And obviously you can see this was with the Fountain app. I'll highlight, I think, some other things related to that in one of the Mere Mortals podcasts. So if you want to know more about that, check out episode 329. And my final section here is just to say thank you once again to everyone there, but also what's coming up for September of 2022. Look, I've kind of refound the reading spirit again. I just finished Yukio Mishima's The Sound of Waves by last night, so definitely that one is coming up. I do hope to finish Ernesto Sabato's Sobre Héroes y Tumbas, which is about heroes and tombs, written in Spanish, so you'll get a kind of a little bit of a different book review, because not many book reviews said in the English language of Spanish books. I think that's kind of a rare niche, so you'll begin that. I believe Juan has got Ego is the Enemy coming up by Ryan Holiday as well, so you'll get a little bit more of modern Greek interpretations. And then there's just general stuff that I've got floating around, but hopefully I'm hoping to get more closer to that 1 a week schedule rather than the kind of 3 a month, which we've been doing, because it's my philosophical days of reading only philosophy books is kind of coming to an end. I'm over it. I'm really over it. And that's it. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining to this part of the audio/video that we're doing. Once again, I just really recommend, if you want to get in contact with me, the best way is through a Boostagram, because I get this is real feedback here, knowing what people are, where people are from in the world, Saudi Arabia, knowing that they'll maybe check out this book and then see some of the others and then be able to be like, oh, this is actually good. Knowing that they like the kind of objective part, and then also me adding in some of my own thoughts, my own highlights of my lack of knowledge, and my failings as well. It's very, very, very helpful to know all of these things. And then there's also been a couple of book recommendations here thrown into mix. Brilliant, I love it. So best ways to do that, there's a value for value podcast, so providing value back in that way is obviously excellent. But also you can share a clip, you can tell a friend about the book reviews, you can recommend more books to me. There's all sorts of different ways you can get back, and I really do encourage you to help participate in the kind of community with me, there's a Discord, there's Instagram, there's other ways you can connect with Juan and myself. And yeah, that's it, man. It's been a fun month. I'm glad it's over. No more philosophy books, and looking forward to the stuff that's coming up for September of 2022. And I hope you are too. So join me, and I'll catch you soon. Kyrin out.